Mantras of our Divine Mother. Our Divine Mother says, "He who follows the steep path that climbs the heights can easily slip down into the abyss. Divine solicitude is supporting you in the disinterested work through which you will attain transformation. Open to the new light that has dawned upon earth, and your path will be illumined. To be always happy with an unclouded, unfluctuating happiness of all things, this is the most difficult to accomplish. With my love and blessings," says our Divine Mother. Words of our Divine Mother from the collective works of our Divine Mother, Volume 7. Question, Sweet Mother. It is said to become conscious of divine love, all other love has to be abandoned. What is the way of rejecting the other love that is to obstinate and never leaves us easily? For this our Divine Mother says, go through, see what is behind. Do not stop at the appearance. Do not be satisfied with the outside form. Look for the principle that is behind this love. Do not be satisfied until you have found the origin of the feeling in itself. Then the external form will fall away by itself, and you will be in contact with the divine love which is behind everything. This is the best way. A Divine Mother says, to want to reject one in order to find the other is very difficult. It is almost impossible. For human nature is so limited, so full of contradictions, and so exclusive that if you want to reject love in its lower form, that is to say, human love as human beings feel, if you make an inner effort to reject that, generally you reject entirely the capacity of the feeling of love, and you become, as it were, a stone. And then sometimes you have to wait for years, even for centuries, for the capacity of receiving and manifesting love to reawaken in you. Therefore, the best way is, when love comes in whatever form, to try to pierce through its external appearance and find the divine principle that is behind it and causes it to exist. Naturally, it is full of snares and difficulties, but it is most effective. That is to say, instead of ceasing to love because one loves wrongly, one must cease to love wrongly and to seek to love rightly. For example, the love between human creatures in all its forms, love of the parents for the children, of children for their parents, of brothers, sisters, friends, lovers, is everywhere tainted with ignorance, selfishness, and all other defects that are the ordinary defects of man. So, instead of wholly ceasing to love, which is beside a very difficult thing to do, as Sri Aurobindo says, which only dries up the heart and serves no purpose, one must learn to love in a better way. Love with devotion, self-giving, self-abnegation, and to fight not against love itself, but against its deformations, against all forms of appropriation, attachment, possession, jealousy, and all feelings which accompany these principal things. Not wanting to possess, to dominate, not wanting to impose one's will, one's whims and desires, not wanting to take, receive, but to give. not to insist on the response from the other, but to be satisfied with one's own love, not to seek one's own interest and one's personal delight and the fulfillment of one's personal desire, but to be satisfied with giving one's love and affection, not to demand response, to be happy simply by loving, nothing more. Our Divine Mother says, if you do that, you have taken a big step, and you can, through this attitude, little by little, progress further in the feeling itself and discover one day that love is not a personal thing. Love is a universal divine feeling that is manifesting through you more or less fairly, but which is in its essence a thing divine. The first step then is to cease to be selfish. For everybody, it is the same. Not only for those who want to do yoga, but even in ordinary life too. If you want to love truly, you must not love for yourself first and foremost, especially in a selfish way. You must give yourself to your object of love without demanding anything in return. In an elementary discipline for you to surmount yourself, to lead a life which is not altogether gross. Our Divine Mother says, for yoga, some other thing can be added. It is, as I have said at the beginning, the will to pierce through this limited and human form of love to discover the principle of divine love that is behind. Then one is sure of arriving at a result that is better than drying up the heart. It is perhaps a little more difficult, but it is better in any case, because that way, instead of making others suffer egoistically, you can leave them quiet in their own moment and endeavor only to transform yourself without imposing your will upon others, and that is, even in ordinary life, a step towards something a little higher, something a little more harmonious. Next question, sweet mother. I have not understood this passage. Will, power, force are the native substance of life energy, and herein lies the justification for the refusal of life to acknowledge the supremacy of knowledge and love alone, for it pushes towards the satisfaction of something, for some unreflective, headstrong, and dangerous that can yet venture too in its own whole and ardent way towards the divine and absolute. Love and wisdom are not the only aspects of the divine, there is also its aspect of power. From the synthesis of yoga, page 153-54. Question: what is it that you have not understood? Says our Divine Mother. Our Divine Mother says, Sri Aurobindo says that the vital part, the vital being, is the greatest obstacle because it is ungenerated, and it would be possible to transform it if it could submit wholly to love and knowledge. But as the predominant quality is force, energy, power, it does not like to submit to the other parts of the being, and that justifies its refusal to submit, because those virtues in their essence are as high as the others. But it has not the same power or the same capacities as it is surrendered. Not being surrendered, it cannot develop itself. There lies the dilemma. It does not surrender because it has power, and this power is unutilizable because it is not surrendered. Then, how to come out of it? The vital, if it were surrendered, would be a very powerful, extremely useful help. It would advance the process much more quickly. But because it feels its power, it refuses to submit to others, and because it does not submit, its power is unutilizable. What is to be done? Our Divine Mother says, Sri Aurobindo puts the problem. He will solve it presently. If we continue to read, He will tell us after a time how to come out of the problem. But first of all, He puts it before you so that you may understand fully the situation. If the vital were a mediocre being without any quality of its own, there would be no difficulty in the way of its surrender, but it would be altogether useless. While, on the contrary, the vital is a kind of fortress of energy and power, of all the powers, but generally this power is deviated. It is not in the service of the divine, but it is in the service of the vital itself for its own satisfaction. So, as long it is like that, it cannot be made use of it. It must understand that the energy and the power it feels in itself can be useful only if it is perfectly in accordance with the divine plan of realization upon earth. If it understands that, then it becomes quiet, allows itself to be marshaled, so as to say, in the total being, and it takes its full strength and its full importance. Otherwise, it is unserviceable, and generally, all its activities are always activities that complicate things and take away their simplicity, purity, very often their beauty, and their effectivity, because its action is blind, ignorant, and very egoistic. These are the words of our Divine.
The hour before the gods awake, across the path of the divine event, the huge foreboding mind of night, alone in her unlit temple of eternity, lay stretched immobile upon silence march. Almost one felt opaque, impenetrable, in the somber symbol of her eyeless view, the abyss of the unbodied infinite, a fathomless zero occupies a marvelous sun looked down from ecstasy's skies on worlds of deathless bliss, perfection's home. God's everlasting day surrounded her. Domains appeared of sempiternal light, invading all nature with the